can set that up better. My name is David Tuber, and I was a storyboard artist on seasons 2 and 3 of Moral Orel. I was lucky enough to co-write and direct the series finale, Honor, and I got to do various illustrations and graphics for the show as well. I have some of them here, something like this kind of stuff. Like those
some of the little gags,
little drawings, joke to come, illustrations, and anytime there was a needed for a graphic, seasons 2 to 3, I got to usually have my hand in that. Oftentimes I would even get to help write the joke, so that was pretty cool.
How flexible was the production? This is one of the questions I kind of asked in the email.
Yeah.
Were you free to add your own ideas while storyboarding? And how much did the final episodes deviate from their initial premise?
I was given a lot of flexibility and a lot of freedom to spitball ideas with Dino and Scott and Jay and everybody involved. They were really open to my ideas, and that was a shock, because in some studios, they kind of keep you to storyboarding, it's script driven, and they're not really interested in your ideas.
Yeah.
Whereas this, they were welcoming all the time. In fact, Dino used to give me first looks at the first draft of the script and say, "What do you think?" And we would talk about it. And it was a really cool relationship that he built with me. And I was surprised. This was one of my first gigs ever. So I didn't know what to compare it to. But I even then knew this was a luxury that I didn't think would be in every other studio. And it's very rare that you come across a show creator that giving. And so if I had a joke, he would even say, "Is this funny? Does this work?" And I would just flat out say, "I don't get this," or "I don't think your audience is going to get that," because I was a fan of Dino's for years. So I kind of got his humor really well, and he trusted me to give him a flat, honest answer. So sometimes I gave him the answer and he went through with it anyway. And then I realized later, well, yeah, that was pretty good. And then sometimes he was like, "All right, well, what would you do?" And we worked together and came up with solutions. So some jokes were flat out my own, and I can't think of any offhand, but
one that I remember he credited to you was in Honor, when Clay's saying, "I love you, Oral."
Yeah, that did kind of come from my first draft of that script. The ending is very different. I was actually just rereading it. I haven't read it in over a decade. It's different, but it's mostly all there. The basic ideas are there, but the ending being the biggest change. But that little exchange, that did come from my first draft, and I was really happy with that.
So what was the original ending, I guess, that you conceived?
Just to give you some context, this all came out of my own need to make sense of Nature 1 and 2. I just finished boarding Nature 1 and 2, and it really, pardon my French, fucked me up. It really stewed with me and my own relationship with my father, and that issue. My relationship with my dad is not great, and so it kind of came out of that I wrote this spec script, not trying to get it on the show. I was just trying to see if Dino would at least read it and tell me if I had a chance at writing in life, like down the road. But he liked it enough that he said, "Well, let's maybe use this." And it was pretty cool of him. Yeah, I had no intentions of getting this on the actual show. This was purely a spec script, labor of love, way for me to be cathartic and almost find closure with my own.
Yeah, almost like you venting.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. But it was a ending that was false to the show, and Dino made it more accurate to the show. So the original ending was, I mean, again, this is me working out my own demons, not trying to get
not conceiving it for the show necessarily.
Yeah, so basically Oral, quote unquote, hates his father, or at least doesn't love him anymore as much. And so I was trying to find a way for him to rekindle that. And there's it comes down to the end where Danielle and Clay have this big fight, like a fist fight. And Danielle could just destroy Clay. Clay's pathetic. And he sees how much it's hurting Oral to see his father so pathetic. And it's still kind of the same animosity and dynamics as what is in that last scene, where you have Clay confessing his love to Danielle and Orel seeing his father in a lowly state.
But yeah, without the physical element to it, it's much more.
It took on a way better dramatic approach with Dino's revisions. But mine came down to an actual fist fight. And it basically was Danielle realizing he could be the better person by essentially taking a dive and allowing Clay to be the victor. Orel might have a sense of love for him again because he sees him less as a loser and more as a winner who's like defending Orel's honor.
Oh, that's dark.
There's a lot of layers to it. And it ends up that Danielle decides to, quote, take a dive. And Clay thinks he won. Orel kind of knows Daniel took a dive, but still they all have like these suppressed emotions, and it's like what's on the surface. And so they all kind of celebrate, like, hooray, you won. And Clay's like, yeah, I love you. I fought for my boy, or something like that. And even though Orel kind of deep down knows that his dad's a loser and that it was all rigged, he allows himself to fake this love for
kind of believe the delusion.
Yeah, and I gotta stop quoting, throwing those around like water. But yeah, that was the original ending, and it was kind of a weird Moralton happy ending, where like things on the surface seem okay, but truthfully, Orel knows his dad's a terrible person. But it allows him enough leverage to kind of get past it and lie to himself a little further.
That wasn't even intended to be in the show. Was it intended to be the ending?
No. This episode, when Dino gave me the feedback on the first draft and said, this is not bad, maybe we can workshop this, and he wrote a second draft. I don't remember the exact wording, but it was, at some point it was loosely said that this could actually get in season 3, and I was just over the moon. It was not supposed to be the series finale. We didn't know we were canceled until later. We got the call, I believe, when we were workshopping Abstinence, which became its own private little bonus episode.
Yeah, I actually have questions about that too later.
Cool. Actually, I have one of the puppets, or see, air quotes. I gotta stop that. I have one of the,
okay.
I got one of the clay blobs from the show Abstinence here. But anyway, we were working on Abstinence. I was supposed to direct that episode, and I had just done the boards. The animatic was cut. We, I believe, had done the voice records. We were on our way with Abstinence. We got the call that we were done, but instead of cutting it cold, they would let us complete, I believe, 13 or 14 episodes. And I think there were like 7, that allowed us like 7 more. So we had to cut, I think, like 6 episodes. So we cut some really good ones, including Abstinence. And so that meeting was just nixed. At the end of it, we realized what that meant. But then of all the episodes, we're like, what would be a good ender? Dino really liked the idea of ending it with honor. Which was originally named Honor Thy Father. And I couldn't believe it. And he said, well, I did say if there's a season 3, you would get to direct an episode. So, man of his word, Dino let me, and, Chris McKay as well. I can't take all the credit. I was more or less co-directing. But still, I got the credit.
It's very impressive, though, like thing to take up as your first.
Yeah, it was terrifying, and I always cringe. Certain moments make me cringe because I realize, oh, you idiot. But, it was my first ever. So.
Especially with how much like emotional weight is being put on that as the series finale at that point.
Yeah. Even though it was only a quick stint for me, it felt like multiple years. It felt like I was losing a friend that I just got to love. And I was prepared to work on Moral Orel for over a decade. I absolutely adored that show. I loved the crew. I loved working with Dino, Scott, and Jay and everybody. And I was so attached to the idea of doing this indefinitely. And then when we got the call, I'll be honest, I cried. I felt like I just found out someone I love got cancer. It's horrible.
Do you remember like just kind of the feeling in the office at the time, kind of the studio?
100%. So I had a wild theory. I told Dino in private, I said, this episode alone, written by Chris McKay, my good friend and brilliant filmmaker Chris McKay, wrote this incredible episode, and I loved it. But I said, I am predicting this is going to put the nail in the coffin and we're going to get canceled. And I said it kind of jokingly, but I said, I give it 5 weeks.
Yeah.
5 weeks from submission, we're probably going to get canned. And Dino said, well, this is the show I want to make. And I was like, okay, well, that's very punk of you. That's awesome. So I don't know if it was 5 weeks or not, but it was shortly after we got the call. And I remember Dino left that meeting for Abstinence. Like he picked up his phone in the middle of it and then walked out. And I was like, that's not good. And then it was like later that day or that week that I was called into Eric Blyler, Dino, and I think McKay was there. Definitely Dino and Blyler, but it was a private meeting with just me. And they said, we have some news. Moral Orel's canceled. And I couldn't help it. I started crying.
Fuck, man. Yeah.
I was just so happy to be a part of this thing that was, in my opinion, still one of the best projects I've ever been a part of. And it was just, I was so new to this. Also, I'm a transplant from Chicago. So it was like I latched onto this thing in an unknown world. This made sense to me, whereas a lot of other things didn't.
Yeah.
And so I was kind of back to being lost in the woods again. And anyway, they told me in private, and then it was like the next day or even later that day, they told the entire studio. And it was heartbreaking. A lot of people were sad. But then a lot of us also were like, well, when you submit an episode like Alone,
yeah,
which is so good. It's so good. And
it's a great episode.
It's an incredible accomplishment. And I'm proud of Dino for sticking to his guns, always staying true to his word. And he's like, this is the show I want to make. And he went out guns blazing. And I think he was right to do it.
The show's almost like timeless in that way. And in that, because you guys committed to what you wanted to do. Like, did you feel that at the time? Like, did you know that you were creating something that would kind of, because it's only getting more popular now.
Yeah, it's cool how that's happening. I didn't expect that. I created this little Instagram account for Orel, and
are you the Oral Travels?
That's me. Yeah. I did that. My wife suggested that. She was like, you should post those online, make an account. And I was like, I should treat it like he's real, like Santa Claus. Like I should always treat it like he's taking the photos and never put myself in there. But I did that, and then the response from that made me realize how relevant this show still is, because I had no idea it was doing so well today with younger generations, and I was like, whoa, this show is killing it. I thought it was kind of a cult classic, but I mean it is, but it's becoming
more and more,
right?
More like mainstream.
Yeah,
I feel like.
And I get a lot of questions. People are like, is it going to come back? And I'm like, no, it's not coming back. It's never coming back. It's dead. Like your grandparents are dead. I'm sorry, but that is how death works.
I know you worked on Beforel Orel, which was a backdoor pilot for like a prequel reboot.
And, we were trying to see. I think we were trying to gauge if that did well. Maybe there was a chance for more episodes, but
was there much in development for like what a full season of that would have looked like?
Not that I know of. I just know the episodes that we were going to do in season 3 that we didn't. And then there was talk about what future seasons would be. There was talk of Orel having a limp forever.
Yeah, I do remember that.
There was a concept of him becoming goth and going full atheist for a while.
Yeah, season 4, I have a lot of questions about season 4.
Sure.
I've been trying to look through everything that you guys planned. And I know obviously not all of these ideas would have made it into the final product. I guess firstly, for stuff that was cut out of season 3, how much work had been done into the Arthur storyline with Orel's grandfather?
A decent amount. I have some of the scripts right here, actually. Yeah. I'm not going to read them, but yeah, we've got Death 1 and 2, Rate, a few others. The one thing I think I can disclose is his dad was going to die. There's one version where he dies like instantly. And then there's another where he's lingering in Orel's bedroom, slowly dying over the course of the season. And he's doing it in secret. And I thought that was amazing. That Orel's watching something like that.
I think you're able to talk about it because the script for Raped was released by Dino as well as Narcissism. And he has like spoken a bit more about like Orel's grandfather was supposed to die over the remainder of the season.
Okay, good. I've actually never read Narcissism. I don't know that one.
It was the one with the paper mouths kind of coming back together, like Florence and the police chief.
Oh, far out. I never knew that. That's great. Cool. Now I have a question for you. No. Yeah, the grandfather was supposed to die over the course of the season, and Orel was going to be tempted into atheism. I think there was a idea that he would. Dino loved playing with the idea that he wasn't. I don't know the term in writing, but it's like that he bounced back so easily. Like he loved the idea of the permanent limp, and other things that Orel could really latch onto long term that weren't going to go away in an episode. So I always call it the reset button, when things just kind of bounce back and go back to the way they started.
Yeah, destroying the status quo almost.
Right, which that's more season 1, but season 3 is all about the lasting effects of things. And that makes for better drama. And I feel like Moral Orel was never a kid show, but kid shows when I was growing up, they always hit the reset button. But even kid shows now have stronger narratives that have like a real arc. I can't believe how in depth. I think that's because of the hour-long drama that just became the norm. Like The Sopranos, The Wire, like that kind of started the idea that you do not reset. You have lasting effects, and the previous episode does matter. And I like that about TV. Even for an animated show for kids, like, who knows? Paw Patrol? Does that have an arc? I don't know.
I do know what you mean. Yeah, like there's more syndication in like episodes in terms of like just a recurring plot and an overarching storyline. Like Gravity Falls is a pretty good example.
Great example. Yeah, and Gravity Falls does a really good job of bringing back stuff you didn't even notice in the first few episodes, and it's all important. And I like that a lot more. I think that's cool. So that's the kind of stuff that we were looking at, is not just having the episode where Orel does this and that. It's like, what's the season? Where can he go? And maybe he's an atheist for an entire season,
Was the non-chronological order thing conceived before cancellation?
That's a great question. That I don't recall. But I do remember it was confusing. We had a timeline like on a corkboard or something, or a whiteboard, and we were trying to make sense of this. We're like, okay, so wait, when does this happen? Like we were all trying to figure it out. And I remember only a few of us in the studio really had a finger on it. And like, we were like, Dave or whoever, like when does this happen? Do they have a mustache yet? Like, it was getting really confusing.
I remember Dino in one of the commentaries too was talking about how it was going to get more confusing in season 4, where, as you mentioned with the limp, they would do more lighthearted episodes where Orel didn't have the limp, and it would just keep jumping even more back and forth. Did you have plans for season 4 at all? That like in your head, kind of like where you wanted the characters to go?
I really love the idea of Orel going full atheist. Dino described it as, at one point somebody says, and I think this was kind of tapped in before Orel, his grandfather or somebody introduces the idea of no God, and just that blows Orel's mind. Like, don't believe in God? What do you mean? And it really makes him trip out. Like, I think it was like a psychedelic trip that like sticks with him, almost like he just took a bad acid or something like that. But I love that idea that atheism to a kid, when all you know is religion, is this incredible mindfuck, and it can take you down like a bad trip. I just thought that was such a neat idea, and I wanted to see the lasting effects of that.
That goes against kind of the ending for Honor, though, where he grows up and does have a healthy relationship.
Yes, that was written. So that little snippet at the end, that was squeezed in because it was made the last episode. That was never in the draft that I submitted, and it wasn't even in the back and forth Dino and I had. That was only when we realized, okay, we have to pick a last episode. And we were kind of looking around at all the other episodes, and we're like, that's like a standalone about Clay. This is about this. And Dino was the one who decided Honor really did kind of capture, because I think, this is my opinion, that the show overall really is about the relationship between Orel and Clay. That's the strongest crux of it all. and then of course his relationship with religion. And I was like, well, honor is the one for that. So that last little snippet was written by Dino at the last second, and I thought it was really beautiful because he didn't have to end it that way. He could have left it alone, but he wrote it. I love the ending. I think it's great. You put in so many Easter eggs, and I got to be a part of that too. Like, well, we should have Shaping Block in there as a firefighter and a cop.
It's a great ending because and this is part of why it's so popular now. It touches on so many personal issues, and for you to be assured as a viewer that he gets out of it okay.
Yeah, he survives and he holds on to his faith.
It's very simple, but it's very, very effective.
We were analyzing, I remember being in the room talking about what elements we want to see, and we didn't want to overdo it as well. Like, we talked about photos of Stephanie and all these other things, and it got a little too much. It was like, well, that's getting a little too forced to have every single person mentioned in the last shot. So we just went for the essentials, like cross on the wall, parents are still together, but they're miserable, Shaping Block turn out okay, and Bartholomew reborn, so to speak, and his son is wearing his lucky shirt fabric, and little details like that we talked about.
I didn't even notice that.
Yeah, it's the same red plaid, I believe, as his lucky shirt. So, and he still has his limp, and we just crammed as many details as possible without being forced.
No, I really think that episode turned out, especially given the circumstances. I mean, you guys were forced to cut out like 7 episodes, which is insane.
I'll admit one of the biggest botches of that episode, and I'm forever humiliated for this one, but I'll call it out. We were redressing the stage, getting it ready for Forgetties, and we just needed a character playing the pinball machine. And I'm like, I don't know who's available. And I'm not over my head, but I was definitely swarmed with all this stuff going on, first time directing, and also emotional as hell because this is the last episode. And anyway, I screwed up and said, yeah, Potter's Wheel should be fine, and not thinking about where the previous scene was taking place. And every time I watch it, I cringe. So we go straight from Potter's Wheel's office to Dr. Potter's Wheel's playing pinball, and we're at Forgetties. Son of a bitch. Literally any other character would have been fine. I picked the one character that we shouldn't have had there. So, yeah, if you can overlook that, it's a great episode.
So I assume also, just for other things that were cut from season 3, was there more concerning Mr. Creepler? Obviously, he was a part of the story in Raped, but
not that I recall. I mean, he's in Abstinence, and I think that's it. Like Abstinence, he's mentioned in Alone, where he was killed in prison. So Raped must have been a flashback of some kind. I don't remember more.
Raped, I think, was her visiting the prison.
Right,
with her class. Yeah.
Right, so that takes place prior to Alone.
And with Miss Censordoll, there's a lot of ideas that weren't entirely conveyed in season 3. There's vague allusions to her brainwashing Clay to shoot Orel, and Dino has mentioned at one point making Alone a dream by other characters.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember that idea at all? And what were your ideas for Censordoll in the season?
Yeah, there's a lot of theories on that, how she's got the voodoo diorama made, by the way, I believe entirely by Lori Olson over a weekend. That thing was amazing. I remember, like, she made there's the miniature table for the puppet, and then there's like the oversized, where we had the oversized hand, pushing Clay and Orel in the woods and all that. Lori frickin' Olson, amazing. But anyway, it was questionable, and I remember asking Dino, like, what is this now? So is she like a voodoo puppet master? What's going on? And I remember him kind of giggling it off, like, well, I don't know. And he wouldn't give me a clear answer, and I think it was open to interpretation. I don't know where that was headed. It definitely seems like there was something more mystical going on. I can't decide if I like it or not. I think, honestly, I wanted that not to be the case, because I like that there is no God, there is no superstition in this world. They talk about it constantly, but there is nothing. It's just science and no supernaturals. So when you introduce voodoo, it kind of breaks the rules and suggests that there is a supernatural power.
I agree with that too. I feel like if there's some kind of voodoo where she forced Clay to shoot Orel, that almost removes a lot of the emotional weight behind that episode.
Yeah, I didn't want to think that he was being controlled by anybody. It's an interesting idea, but I also think I prefer the world just dry and supernaturalness. That's the one for me. And like, Oral waiting on Christmas Eve for God to appear. He says, "I have faith in you," and then it's just silence. Oh, I love that. Like that's the Moralton I want for this show, is the one that doesn't have any spirituality floating around.
So Clay's character is changed forever after nature, and you said that it really resonated with you. And I remember Dino also said that it is the reason that season 3 went the direction it did, just kind of the rants that Scott ad-libbed for Clay. And what did you think of that episode as you were
I'll answer with, let me see if I can find it. I have that script here, the original one that I got. So this was my reaction. Booyah. I read this. This was originally one episode, and then they broke it into two, which is smart. And I couldn't believe it. Like that we were going to do this, then go down this rabbit hole. But then I was like, yes, I can. This is Dino's show, and he's that kind of guy. He writes really good stuff that you can't believe sometimes. So my response was, this is amazing. Here we go. Buckle up. And also the ending, the way Scott performed it was incredible. I can't recall if I was at that recording session. I think I was. I seem to remember being there when he was recording that. And it was amazing. Scott is such a good performer and voice actor. Holy cow. He is real good. Let the record show, Baymax is fine, but he is far more capable. He can do anything. He's incredible. Yeah. So he he did that, and the room was stunned. I'm pretty sure I was there for that, or something similar to that. But it was amazing. And every time I watch the episode, I just can't believe what happens. I mean, it just keeps going further and further, and then he drinks the alcohol for Oral's leg, and like, just, oh my God, it just keeps going further and further. And I still can't believe it. It's incredible television, let alone storytelling. It's great. And I love when we forget they're puppets and that these are, silly little toys, so to speak, but they are so dramatic and so intense. Yeah. And our jaws on the floor, we forget to breathe during that episode, at least I do. And it's, it's a doll. It's a cute little puppet, and yet it's made us feel so much. I love when that can happen, when you can feel a lot. Bojack Horseman does the same thing.
Oh, I was going to ask you about Bojack, because I saw you also worked on that show.
Yeah, again, lucky break. I was so fortunate to get on a show that turned out to be one of my favorite projects.
As someone who's worked on both, how would you describe the similarities and differences between the two?
Well, like I was saying, the idea that these are, I don't want to say silly, but animal heads on humanoids is a kind of silly look. It feels cartoony and fun.
Very inherently comedic.
Yeah, by default. And then you've got these incredibly intense moments in Bojack, really heavy. Like I don't want to compare the two like apples and oranges, but I'd say comparable to nature, like Bojack. Same thing where I'm holding my breath. I can't believe this is happening. Yeah. And then I'll pause it in my brain and go, that's a talking horse. He's wearing red Converse shoes. Like, this is ridiculous. And yet it's not. It's amazing. I love when you can take a seemingly two-dimensional world and break it to its third dimension in a way you didn't see coming. I mean, that's most good cartoons. That's Rick and Morty. That's a lot of them, where you have this seemingly flat, childish surface, and then beneath that you've got something really special.
They're thematically very different, but I think, especially given that Orel was alone in where it was in television, I think if it had been given a few more years, Bojack could have really helped it keep going. And if it had more seasons to it, it would be held in to that same regard as Bojack for sure.
Yeah. There's still a lot of people that don't know more Orel, but those who do, boy, they get excited. It died too soon, so to speak. And I think it could have, I said I could have worked on it for a decade. I feel like it had at least another 3 seasons in it, at least. But At
Were
least we
you
got to do any
privy to their 5-year plan?
Not really, no. I knew some of the plans for season 4, but I didn't know like the full arc, the full structure. I'm just so grateful that we didn't get the cold cancellation like some shows do. You know,
Yeah.
we'll never know what happened to Glow, but but we got to have those extra episodes of Moral Orel, and we got that little bit at the end of Honor, and we did what we could. Full credit to Dino for putting in what we needed for a complete series. So it would have been nice, but at least we got to go out the way we did.
So you said that you had a lot of attachment to the episode nature, kind of because of your own view of Clay and how that trauma related to you. Were you witness to the debates over Clay's characterization, and what was your kind of input?
I wasn't as involved with his characterization. That was written by the greats. I was mostly along for the ride when it came to the jokes and some of the story and characterization, but I feel like Clay was pretty much figured out, and that was Dino and Scott and Jay. Like they were mostly the ones, and McKay. They were. I mean, I threw in my hat and said my 2 cents here and there, but I feel like it was already kind of figured out. And nature went far beyond what I was comfortable with, because what was I, 24? I was 25 or so when I wrote the first draft. But like, you know, I wrote the happy ending. Oh, sorry, I'm talking about Honor. But nature went further than I was comfortable to even expose. Like, you know, Dino's really good at exposing humility and all these really hard things to talk about. Warts and all is the phrase, you know, and that's hard for a lot of people to do, to be that honest. And I wasn't really in a place to even allow myself to think that way. Like I said, when Clay drinks the alcohol that he gets for Orel's leg, every time I watch it, I'm like, I can't believe he did that. You know? Like, I don't know if at the time I would be able to even conceive that, because it just goes past my comfort level.
Yeah, but was that part of your storyboards, or?
Yeah. Well, I boarded those, but I didn't come up with that. That was totally in the scripts. I don't want to take credit for Clay in nature. That went past my ability, because I'm pretty honest with myself and my relationship, but with my dad. But like, I also don't put it on paper like Dino can. Like, and by the way, I believe his relationship with his dad is not Orel and Clay at all. I think it is pure fiction on that. In that respect.
A lot of nature was written by Scott. I recall Dino said that he only wrote 4 lines of that, which is kind of insane.
Really?
To think about. Yeah.
Oh man, you did your homework. Okay.
Yeah, he wrote he did end up it inspired him to write the rant in Easter, which it was written for that episode and then moved to that. Do you remember Adult Swim telling them that they couldn't have that rant in Easter?
Yeah. I remember a lot of the notes we got back.
What were some of your favorite notes from Adult Swim?
Sarcastically, or
I guess both.
Well, the famous one was we were told by Laszlo that he wanted more urine and sperm, like more season 1 stuff.
And, like you explicitly asked for that? Yeah,
he's basically saying, I want to see more of that season 1 stuff where, you know, that little rascal gets in all sorts of hijinks. And I know what he was saying. He didn't want to see, I think deep down, he just didn't want to see Orel get hurt.
Yeah.
He wanted to protect his buddy. And season 1 Orel is made of rubber. You know, he kind of bounces back. Like I was saying, that reset button, you know.
He can do heroin and come back all fine.
I always wanted to see him ask for heroin later. Like someone would say something that sounded like heroin. He's like, did you say heroin? Do you have heroin? Like, or crack? Crack? Like, just, no. I said the sidewalk has a crack. Oh, okay. Anyway, and like, just, I love the idea that it's always in his system. He will always want crack.
That would have been a good idea for like,
it's just a fun throwaway joke. Yeah.
Unexpected long-term repercussions.
Like, I think we even did that with Bartholomew once, where someone said something that had to do with the dog, and he was like, "Oh, Bartholomew," and that, or like he finds the old leash. Wasn't that like an elemental oral or something? Like he's like,
"Yeah,
poor Bartholomew." Anyway, but sorry, I totally got off topic.
Oh, no problem. I was just asking about just some of the production notes that you guys got.
Right. Most of the notes were pretty good. Even if I didn't see it at first, sometimes I'd look at the notes and I'd be like, come on. And then I'd think about it. I was like, well, that's pretty good. Nick Weinfeld was pretty hands-on and he was giving us notes, and he's very smart and had some really thoughtful notes in terms to the writing and the characters. So he kind of trusted his judgment for the most part. But then
He was
that's
he was
sorry.
responsible for the finale of season 1 airing first, I believe.
I don't know, but ooh, what is that? That's just I can't believe that happened. Now I came later, I joined season 2, but I couldn't believe that they did that. I don't know what I guess the logic was it's a Christmas episode, so you have to play it first.
And also like they were like worried like, well, if we can get this past the censors, then everything else is fine because it's the darkest. But
not really off to a good start regarding audience and ratings with that episode, and rightfully so. Like I showed my wife recently the show, and we started with that, and she was just like, what is this? I'm like, right, exactly, yeah. I didn't watch it that way. I actually went the correct order, so I was lucky that way. But because I didn't watch it when it first came out, I didn't even know about it until I started working at Cheddar Machine, and then I watched all the episodes in the right order, and I was like, this is great. Wait a minute, you're telling me they aired the Christmas one first? That's insanity. Adult Swim,
makes no sense.
Well, Adult Swim, I mean, they make a lot of odd choices. Sometimes those are the right odd choices, so sometimes they're correct in their bizarre feedback, but sometimes they air the Christmas episode first. And I think that was a mistake, but still grateful for Adult Swim. Like Dino said in the last caption, like grateful that we got to make these episodes at all. And I mean, they let us make a stop motion religious parody of David and Goliath, and it got to where it got in season 3 at all. That's amazing. So
yeah, very few companies would even let it get to season 3.
Yeah, credit where credit's due, even if their notes are sometimes confusing.
So I'm really interested. I imagine you can't talk a lot about it, but Death Parts 1 and 2 are fully written.
Yeah,
that's kind of insane because those 2 scripts have evaded kind of anyone really knowing what state they're in. Like a lot of episodes we know for sure are fully written because Dino uploaded them, but Death was one that people just assumed, well, there wasn't much work done on it.
They're right here, but I can't really disclose anything without Dino's blessing. But
gotcha.
You'd have to pick his brain about it. But I will say it's a lot of the stuff that ended up in Beforel Orel, like Grandpa and all that, like, and talking about atheism, like that's kind of where that goes. But the rest of it, you'll have to talk to the big man.
That's interesting. You're really holding on to like a holy grail right there.
I'm just a hoarder. What can I say? That's all that is. But I respect Dino's wishes too much, and if he was like sometimes you can't tell. Sometimes she's like, no, don't let it out of the bag. That's sacred, or polar opposite. I don't fucking care. Do whatever you want. You never know. So he might be cool with it. He might not.
So this is a bit unrelated, but do you know why Jay Johnston was unavailable to voice his characters in most of season 3?
For respect for Jay, I'll just say there were some issues. I care about Jay, I do, and I worry about him, but I mostly adore him as a comedian. I respect him very much as a performer and a voice actor. He is a phenomenal force of comedy. So that's what I think of the man first and foremost. But there were some issues, and I'll keep it brief and just say it wasn't quite working as well. So we found some replacements.
All right. Yeah, I won't try to dig into that then, because if it's like a sensitive thing.
It kind of, yeah. I mean, it's not about me saving my own ass. I worry about him. That's
Yeah,
where I'm at.
he was in. I'm sure you're aware of like the
Yeah.
controversy.
Yeah.
Okay. So production of Abstinence. How did that begin? And I guess I know how that began. You were directing it, but how difficult was it really to create in those circumstances?
When people ask me what was the biggest labor of love I've had in my career, I'd have to say that one. Because it was so daunting to do for me at least, to do on top of a full-time job. And then some of the other people involved, we were already putting in our full day on, I think we were on Robot Chicken or something else at the time. And then I would go to work on Abstinence. Luckily, I had a lot of help, and Morgana Ignis was the biggest ally in this, and she was animating like crazy during the day, and I would sneak down to look at the stages. And basically it broke down like this: we got canceled, we had the head of the department meeting where we discussed the animatic, voice records were done, we knew the breakdown, like we need this many puppets for this shot, we need this setting, and so we had all the important details of it's kind of like the blueprints of the episode.
Yeah.
And then we got the call. Abstinence was like a bonus Doughy episode. I loved it, and I was so keen to direct it. I told Dino, I was like, this is the silliest episode in my opinion. And I like silly. I really like ridiculous. And so I was all over it. And then he's like, well, it got cut. So we'll put you on honor instead. And I was like, well, that's a very nice compromise. But I still wanted to see if there was room for Absence to get made. And I don't know who, like, I really think someone just casually spat out, what if we made it on our own? Or maybe it was Dino. It might have been him, because it's kind of a crazy idea, and that seems like something he would say. And he teamed me and Morgana together, because Morgana was already animating like the end bits, that Orel was animating. And she was involved in not the writing, but like she was just a hand in a little bit of everything at Shadow on Moral Orel. So anyway, she knew the show was the point. And Dino suggested to Blyler, these guys could make it, I'm sorry, Morgana and I could make this episode, complete it with a few other helping hands. And so anyway, I'm getting off tangent, but we had to get the approval from Blyler first. The studio was in a hiatus. I was pre-production, so that was going on Robot Chicken, but nobody was animating on the stages. So we had all the stages and all the lighting equipment sitting there. And he said, I need you to treat this like a real production. So that meant deadlines and getting things done at a proper time and showing it to him like a production. Like, okay, we're checking it off. This is happening. Can't just, willy-nilly. So I tried to make it as real as possible. We had what's called the big board, where we had all the paper storyboards up on the wall, and we were crossing them off as we checked them off, and talked to the post department, saw who was willing to help out. We have a lot of people willing to help, and thank goodness, because we didn't know how to do the post stuff, like de-wiring and cleanup, and we were learning so much as we went. Like, we learned very quickly that these puppets will bake under the lights. They will melt. Here's one of them here. This is Doughy. There he is. I mean, he's really dirty, but that's him. So filthy little clay puppet made by Morgana, Bridget Dash, and whoever else, Becky Van Cleve, I think, helped us, and like a lot of people, Trisha Gum. And we just reached out and said, hey, who wants to do this? It's going to be like a treehouse fun after school thing, but we're also treating it like a real production. So all the little clay puppets were made by hand. All the sets were made out of cardboard. Morgana and I went to the nearby grocery store and just collected boxes for days, and then just started making sets. And I was doing most of the lighting, and I had never done lighting before. I've done like live action shoots, but this is miniatures and it's different. And so
whole different realm.
It just took forever. And I'm guessing completely good. You can see which shots I didn't quite nail. Like, they're way too bright or way too dark. And I'm like, well, we got to go. We've got ticking clock, because we only had so much time before the hiatus was over. And Blyler was like, that's your window. So I feel like it was like 2 months or something to do the whole thing. And
Wow.
there were a lot of nights when Morgana and I would be like animating till 4 in the morning, and I'd sleep on the couch in someone's office and then get back to work on the next show. So it was nuts, and it was also really fun. 4 in the morning, blasting some Norwegian death metal, trying to stay awake, and animating little shots for this lost episode. Fully realizing that this will probably never see the light of day, but it was just this like last chance to do anything more oral related. This is, after everything had been put away, all the sets and puppets
Just
have been
almost as
seized.
like your own love letter to the show.
Exactly. Yeah. And I was so fortunate that anybody was willing to help us, because there's no way the two of us could have done all of it. We had a lot of help. And I tried to give everybody the proper credit in the end credits. And then I got an okay from Adult Swim to throw it online. They said I was like on the like whitelist, which is like you're okay to, God, that sounds horrible. But basically had the all clear from Adult Swim to throw it online, but then they took it down. And I was like, no, I guess they changed their mind. So now it's just out there in the ether. I honestly hope people get to see it, because it was.
Oh no,
really.
it's been there was a lost media hunt for it for a while. I'm not sure if you're aware. I'm sure people contacted you about that at the time.
Yeah,
But
I've gotten a few people reaching out, and I just tell them like it's out there, you can find it.
yeah,
But
it's on YouTube now, and it's like a great. I've talked with a lot of my friends who've watched the show too, and it is a great send off to the show as like, you know, outside of Honor, it's like, oh wait, there's an entire another episode, and it's
yeah, and I'm glad it's not
completely
really essential to the more oral zeitgeist. Like it's kind of its own standalone bonus. It's the Doughy special, and you don't need it, but there's a lot of fun stuff in it. And
you can when you're watching it like from an outsider, like you can feel there's a lot of heart in it.
that means a lot. Um, and it's funny because I was so ready to direct that episode, and then I got thrown into Honor, and I was like, well, this is cool too. But this is so not the same episode.
Very different stakes.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's still fun. Like we had to problem solve everything had to be problem solved. Like just the opening shot with the homophobos, which I wrote that joke. The idea of the game ending sent out of Moralton. Well, that was written by Dino, but the name homophobos. But then I was like, well, we could make a bus and put 4 puppets in it, or I could just draw these characters loosely based on the kids in the hall and just animate their mouths and just have it slide out of frame. And I was like, that'll do. We'll do that. So we were constantly problem solving any way we could.
Were there so I know you joined in season 2. Were there episodes from season 2 that were scrapped, or just like ideas and scripts just that just didn't make the cut?
Probably, yeah. I mean, Dino had a cork board with all the episode ideas and titles, and I'm sure some of it got either pushed to season 3 or to a potential later episode, like just ideas. None of which I can recall, though. There wasn't any specifics. I remember season 2 hearing about certain ideas, and then that became like Sundays season 3 or something like that. Like the paper mouth relationship with Florence. Like I remember those kinds of things being tossed into later seasons, but nothing just disappeared though. I can't recall anything like that.
Gotcha. And I also asked in the email if you retained many production materials from the show, and I was wondering if you would be able to show any of those.
Yeah. So if anybody asks, or anybody's listening, these were all just dropped off on my doorstep in a basket, and I have no idea how they got there. So this is a sign from the hiding place. This is the hand jack that I showed earlier. Roberto's hand jack. You saw Doughy. This is the actual backing to the chair. Again, just showed up on my doorstep. So I wish I had the full chair, but there's part of it. I've got this push to learn sign from was it Ridley's Believe It or Else or something like that. This is a sheet of Moralton mouths.
Oh,
these are the official mouths. So we've got the gents and then we've got the ladies. Because all ladies wear lipstick. And then this is see, we got an authentic Nixon right there. This was a design for Orel as the campaign manager that I did.
Oh, that's cute.
I was lucky to get to design a lot of characters. Like sometimes we just say in the script, so man 1, lady 2, and all that. And Dino was pretty cool about letting me get specific with the details. And lots of times, like Walt Gluegun, the Doey's bully, that was kind of loosely based on Bluto. It was like a young Bluto in my head. So I drew Bluto and it came up pretty accurate and looks just like the borders. So yeah, I was pretty lucky that way. A lot of times these characters took on that look. Like, what's his name? Christine, in the Holy Visage, the one where, the guy gets the imprint on his belly.
Oh,
right.
It looks like
the same
Jesus.
episode as the Believe It or Else museum. I just had to draw some guy and he's Jewish. So I based him after my Jewish uncle and he kind of looks like him. So that was fun. I told my uncle like, hey, you're famous, you're a puppet. So this is from Abstinence. This is one of my favorite jokes that I was lucky enough to incorporate. It was the newspaper article, the Cautious Herald, and it has a artist rendering of what Doey as the caper looks like. And I just used a photo of Scott. So he was kind enough to pose for that. So yeah, so there's some stuff. And then here's the real bread and butter. And there's the boy.
Oh my God, it's Orel.
There he is.
Is this the show model?
This is the actual puppet. Now, this is a recent upgrade. He was falling apart. His old body was just falling apart from wear and tear and from me posing him in various parts of the world for that Instagram account. And Becky Van Cleve, one of the puppet builders from the show, Fabricators, she gave him a new body. Now, what's amazing about this, this is actually young Clay's body. So what's fascinating about this and really kind of cosmic is Orel literally became his father. But he got to keep his head, which that's the ultimate metaphor. So yeah, he is wearing his father's body, but that is still Orel's head and his clothes. And they're almost the same bodies. They're slightly different, but they're, for anybody's money, the same thing. So that's him. And I've got some other puppets, but that's the main stuff.
I'd love to see the other puppets too, but I don't know if you're allowed to show them.
You can hold on. I'll go grab them.
All right.
One second. So, not as pretty as Orel, but here we've got Santa Clay. That's kind of fun. And then here we've got Clay. Just here's the man. He needs an eye and some cleaning up. He's definitely falling apart, which I kind of love that he's naturally deteriorating. His soul is just tearing him apart, but that's the man. So yeah. That's
do you ever just pose him around the house? Just have Clay sitting watching you?
I try to use them as minimally as possible because they do break. With wire armatures, these aren't ball and socket. Ball and socket, they can last forever, but these were a little more on the simple design side. So you only get like so many bends before when you're done, that arm will never work again. Like the old Orel body that I had, all his joints broke. He was just a rag doll. So try to be as delicate as I can, but every once in a while I'll pose him. I try to be sparingly with it.
Did you ever get to design the Christian goth Orel?
I did do a drawing. I have a stack of folders somewhere with all the drawings I did for the show, with the exception of these that I showed you. And in there is, just a rough drawing I did, like my goth. He looks like Gene Simmons, like just full on glam makeup and everything. I think Stephanie, in my head, even like pierced his tongue or something. I like the idea that Orel got something pierced. Well, he got the Prince Albert, but like something else that he could hide, that he could present every once in a while, like it's stick out his tongue and he's got this big dumbbell or something. But I just took my stab at it, but it was never approved. It was just an idea. Yeah, I was always doodling ideas. Like I sent you an email with the punching machine from Turn the Other Cheek. In the script, it just has a Rube Goldberg-esque punching machine or something like that. And I kind of worked out the mechanics of a machine that would potentially actually work. And I was going to build it. And
Oh, I didn't see this email. Sorry.
oh, that's fine. I sent it just before this meeting, so it was impromptu. But yeah, it's just these two boxing gloves, and it looks just like the final prop that was made for the episode, which was so fun because I was like spitballing, and I was like, "Does this punching machine work?" And lo, it's what they used.
That sounds fucking making a mechanism, like a miniature mechanism based off concept art.
Yeah,
It sounds so difficult.
it was fun. Like there was so much room for that because Dino knew the joke or the dynamic of the scene, but he wasn't precious about every detail. He'd be like, I don't know how this makes sense, just figure it out.
Yeah.
The Roberta cleaning solution that somehow sprays things in it. Wherever. There were just so many moments where people were allowed to put their 2 cents in and find a way to make it work. That's a really fun part.
You came up with the hand jack kind of box. Did you have to storyboard most of that and come up with that stuff by yourself?
I'm trying to remember if I did Numb. I think I did part of Numb. I think by season 3, I was sharing the work more with other board artists. Season 2, some episodes I did by myself, and that was hard. I was happy to have the help. Numb, I think I shared. But this one, yeah, that was interesting where she had to use the hand jack and like we had to get real specific and talk to standards and practices and get real.
Oh, geez. Yeah. Wait, what were the notes for that like? And
we got a lot more notes season 3. I'll say that. They had a lot of rules, and these were the similar notes we got later on Barry Shelley's Frankenhole, which I went on to do with Dino after this. I got to direct that as well. And we got similar notes about sexual things, like you couldn't suggest insertion, but you could, a fine line, like you can't show this, but you can show penetration, but you can't show this. And so with her, we had to be very, very specific with the animator, what she could do with her arms. A lot of it, I think, was done with sound. I don't think she actually does a lot of back and forth. I think it's mostly suggested with sound. I know with Principal Fakey and Nurse Bendy, that was all achieved with zooms. We just zoomed in and out because we couldn't actually show a throbbing effect on his body. So yeah, they got pretty technical.
I was always surprised with how much nudity was allowed on the show. Like there's a Nurse Bendy promo for Beforel Orel.
Yes.
Where she's just fully naked and just talking about how she's allowed to do that because she doesn't have any nipples or anything.
I actually really love the animation of that. It's so good.
Most of those characters don't even appear in the special, like Joe. And I was kind of confused until I read that it was a backdoor pilot.
Yeah. Yeah, I think they were trying to find a way to bring back the show. And the idea was instead of going forward from where we left off, we would do a prequel and see Orel's humble beginnings. And it was different. It was a new studio and it was all a little different. It was, were we even shooting at 4:3? I feel like we were shooting wider at that point. And
it was full HD.
Yeah, and the film quality was better. Sometimes there's something really charming about that grit, like early Simpsons episodes. You know?
I definitely noticed when Beforel Orel came around, the backgrounds were definitely a lot more like textured and painted.
They're very realized, and the fact that it's a prequel, that's always tough. Because you're like, why does the world look better? Kind of like I hate to compare it to like Star Wars episode, 1, 2, and 3, but it's like, why are the holograms so much better? Shouldn't they be glitchy? So anyway, it was a fun experience still to be on anything Orel related again, but it was all very different, and still grateful for the experience.
I remember you said at the very beginning, like the show is it's dead for sure. Like Moral Orel's not coming back, and is a large part of that because of because Beforel Orel is a prequel. Like, is it because of the struggle to kind of move forward from where it ended?
I think I think it's more of a principle. I think Dino considers this a checked box. You know, he accomplished what he wanted with season 3. It's done, and it's kind of like getting back with your ex. You know, it's like just call it, man. Stay down. So like with Before Oral, I think that was the last chance for it to come back, and the ratings I don't think were where we wanted them to be, and it didn't quite make the splash we were anticipating. So as I understand it, that was the real last chance for it. So it's like, all right, loud and clear. The world doesn't want more oral. They love it, but that's not enough. You need more than that. So you need ratings, and you need a network that wants to do it. And more than anything, you need a creator who wants to do it. And I think Dino's really content with it being over. And honestly, I am too, because again, don't get back with your exes. It's over, and it was a wonderful ride, and that's the best we could hope for.
I have noticed that Dino does seem to talk about the show a lot less than kind of he did just like 2 to 3 years back in like 2018, 2019.
Well, I think
it just seems like he's closed the book. Yeah.
I think he's a man of his word, and he is confident in himself. Like, he's aware of himself, and he's also, listen to me talk about him like I'm his analyst. But to me, he knows when things are done. He knows when a joke doesn't work or when it can, and he can kind of call it. And I think he's right to be honest with himself and say, look, I did it. It's over. You know, there's no more in the tank, or at least not interested. You know, he's pursuing his music career, and he's moved on to other things. And that's, as an artist, you got to be able to move on and kill your darlings at a certain point. And I think he did that. He's like, look, it's over, and I've made my peace with it.
I do really appreciate that you agreed to do an interview, because I've learned a lot. I feel like there's a lot of stuff that I've done my homework, but there's only so much you can really. I was super interested to talk about how nature affected you on that level, and how it resonated with you, and how that turned into honor, because a lot of people love the show because of how it resonates with them, and even into the staff members, you know, it was having that same effect, like in production.
The fact that, I'll say this, I've been witness to a studio announcement that a show is coming to an end abruptly. I've been witness to that 3 times, but I never saw more tears than when Moral Orel was announced. Like, that hit really personal. People, I don't think it was that they were losing their jobs. I think it was like, oh no, our friend Orel, and our involvement with this incredible story that, in my opinion, it felt very needed to be told. And I'm just so damn lucky that I got to be anywhere near involved. Like, it's just, that was what I was sad about, was how, I hate to use the word blessed, but lucky.
It's a bit appropriate, I guess.
Yeah. It was amazing that I stumbled upon the show in a backwards fashion, and that it just happened to be run by some of my absolute favorite comedy writers. And I just happened to have a niche for this thing, and got to stay on and move up in ranks and take on multiple hats. Like, fucking luckiest guy in the world. And I am sad that it ended early, in my opinion, but it's also pretty cool to be. I mean, it really is like the death of a loved one. It's like, well, I'm happy to know them at all rather than not. So,
yeah, I've kind of gone through all my questions, but I guess I thought about this one. Did you work on the movie episode, Orel's movie?
Oh, Orel's movie premiere?
Yeah,
I did. Yeah.
How was that? Because that episode seemed like it was really fun to make.
Yeah, it was, you know what a bottle episode is, or a clip episode?
Yeah.
It's basically, that was our solution to a hurt production. we were trying to find some smart solutions to save time and money on an episode by basically doing this crazy idea to have, well, this was Dino's idea, to have Orel's movie premiere and all this rough animation done by people who weren't animators, who are just happy to help. So again, Morgana, I think Becky Van Cleve, myself, and a few others got to do the animation, and it was a blast. Like, we just, whatever it would loosely say, this happens from this episode, Clay beats Orel, and I forget who thought of. I think it was Morgana thought of Clay being a wolf, which that took off with the internet. Holy cow, people love that. And then it was, I forget, like Stakey was a snake, and like I had the idea to use, or somebody had the idea to have Clay's belt as a snake, and like there was so much fun symbolism there.
It's such a great, like, it's a clip episode, but it's such a great acknowledgement of like how nonsensical some of those early episodes were, while also just being really funny. Like that's one of the funniest episodes for sure.
I'm glad to hear you say that. And also Joe's reaction in that episode, grabbing all the mics and just going on like a roast, was based on Dino's behavior at Comic-Con.
The awkward Comic-Con panel?
Yeah, when he grabbed all the mics and screamed "fuck you" to Doc and Hammer and the Venture Brothers guys, and like it was kind of based on that loosely, because I think that had just happened. Or also testament to Dino's joke writing, how his jokes stay, and I just can't believe it. I would never be able to. I can't write the way he does because he's more committed, like Orel having a permanent limp. Well, anyway, in Orel's movie premiere, he said, "What if the sheet is Clay's and it's got a big piss stain right in the middle?" And I said, "That's a funny joke." So then does like Orel adjust it? And he's like, "No, it stays the entire time." So the entire episode, we had to look right into that piss puddle and and see. I was so ready to have it like, okay, that's the end of that joke. Let's move it aside. He's like, "Nope, it's going to look you right in the face the entire episode." And that's a testament to his commitment to his own humor. I couldn't write that way because who knows now? But at the time, he goes past my comfort levels, and bless him for it.
Joe has such a great role in that episode. I love, one of my favorite things that he says in that episode is kind of like when he sees a segment that Orel did that looks really impressive. He's like, "Oh, that's really cool, Orel. How'd you do that?"
I'm going to brag. That was my shot. So it was when Orel was tripping, I think. And like we use these little pom-pom balls and flashing lights and things. And I think he rides like a giant dollar. I think he actually rides this dollar. Yeah. Like he rides it around like a carpet. Yeah. So when I saw the final cut and Joe said that, I was like, "Oh, that's a nice Joe likes my stuff."
Well, you know what? He was right. That is a very impressive shot. Looks really cool.
I just love that episode when Joe goes full roast and he's like, "Arthur Puppington, you having a good time?" That show, I told you recently, I watched it with my wife. She had never seen it in full and with my production commentary. And oh my God, is that show still good? And I know I'm very biased, but
oh no, I watched it recently too.
It's so good and better than I remembered. And now I can kind of even separate myself because I actually forgot the lines because, when you're that close to something, you're like reciting it as it goes. But this time I was like, wait, I forgot that was going to happen. Holy shit. It's pretty cool to be a fan of something I was already a fan of.
By the way, this is just unrelated, but was Joe and Nurse Bendy, were they always intended to be related?
If they were, I didn't know about it.
So like it came as a shock to you when you read the script?
What's that?
Did it come as a shock to you when you read the script?
Yeah. In fact, that episode, there's a lot of connections in there. Like you realize who Joe's father is, who Joe's half sister is, and all the characters in Moralton start to connect a little more. That was quite a shock. And just mentioning Joe and Bendy, by the way, when we did Honor, that was one episode. I said at the end we weren't trying to overcram it, with all these little Easter eggs, but the episode as a whole, I wanted to cram with all those little things that I wanted some closure on Putty and Stephanie. So we snuck them in and had them just having a nice time together. Like, okay, that's a wrap on those two. Bendy and Joe skate by really fast with their tongues out. And then Carl and I forget her name, but Joey's mom. Like they're just trying to sneak in as many characters as possible. And like, okay, that's a wrap on Potter's Wheel. Just like trying to make some closure to this arc, all the Moralton characters.
Yeah, because
that's it. We got nothing left. So
that's part of why I think so many people want the show to come back, because there's so many different characters and just ideas introduced in season 3. Like, I mean, Joe Nurse Bendy, as you mentioned, and Stephanie and Putty. It's just so much, and people, I think, wanted to see kind of where they go from there. And seasons 4 and 5 were supposed to focus on the whole town. And
Yeah, me too. I mean, I'm one of those people. I wanted to see a lot more. I couldn't wait to see the Bendy Joe relationship get deeper. And Stephanie and Putty is one of the sweetest.
yeah,
I mean, there's Oral and Christina, but that's almost like perfect.
it's almost cartoonishly perfect.
Yeah,
Whereas
yeah.
Putty and Stephanie's very realistically
Yeah,
wholesome.
yeah, exactly. And I love to see where they would go. And I want to see, like, I could watch a spinoff from them, like the Putty Stephanie show, because they're so interesting and they're not playing it like a standard father-daughter typically. Like, it's not sitcom
Yeah,
father and daughter. It's more like they're just two adults who respect each other. I thought
it,
that was fascinating. I love their relationship. So yeah, I was bummed to see the show end, of course, because I wanted to see. I'm like I said, I'm a fan, and I wanted to see more of this stuff expand. So with Honor, we just crammed it with as much of that as possible.
now it did make me upset because Putty is so he has such a great sweet moment with Stephanie, and then eventually it's followed up with the Florence episode where
Yeah,
he just becomes like you get a very disgusting kind of image of him inside of him. And
yeah,
I was wondering, did you have any involvement with that episode, kind of the conception of it, almost like, because that's one of the greatest, I think, reincorporations I've seen in the show, just taking this joke character from all the other 2 seasons and then recontextualizing it in a way that makes you, the viewer, feel really bad for laughing at them.
it's a really good way to put that. No, I was not part of the conceptualization of that. I believe that's Sundays, right?
I think so, yeah.
Sundays. I think that was who Scott or Nick was the one who realized there's this woman keeps showing up and you could make a narrative or an arc out of all of her instances and then yeah, make the audience feel bad for laughing. I love when these throwaway moments, like he mentions Putty mentions the little zebra figurines and you
Yeah.
don't think anything of it, and then later it's a whole thing. I love that. We did have you asked if there was anything that got thrown away. There's a guy, I think he's called Mr. Shruggington. He's constantly like going like this, I realized we could make something out of him, and I think there was at one point something like we were gonna finally get to know who this guy is and why he's always agreeing with stuff. And like some things are throwaway jokes, and they're better for it. But it is kind of fun when you 3-dimensionalize these seemingly dumb ideas and make them into a story. That's such fun. And yeah, that was one character we were gonna. I mean, it wasn't really much. It wasn't very deep. It was just kind of a joke. Whereas the Florence stuff, her arc is fascinating. I love where we took that. And yeah, you do kind of take Putty down a peg. Also, he's racist. Let's not forget that. But then so is everybody involved.
All right, so yeah, I've gone through all kind of the questions I prepared for the interview, but no, it was a really interesting conversation. You definitely have a lot of great insight and stories into kind of this show that I feel like I feel like is almost eluded, or not, like, it's shrouded in all this kind of like mystique over, like, well, how'd they do this? How'd they figure that out? What was supposed to happen before it
I
got
love
cut
that.
down?
See, maybe getting canceled is a good thing.
It does, in a way, like, it does add to a lot of the reputation of like the show that was too offensive and real for television. But
Yeah, I
also,
mean,
it would have been cool to get more
would
episodes.
have been cool, but sometimes when you ended a perfect little bow, it's less satisfying than, like you said, the mystique factor.
Yeah,
Also, I don't see this ever happening with one of Dino's projects, but at least it didn't go too long where it just got kind of stale and you're like, okay, how much longer? Like
yeah.
I can't imagine that happening with him, but yeah, got 3 seasons, pretty cool, and some promos, not bad.
So I guess, is there anything you'd like to end the interview on? Just kind of any message to like the people listening to this interview?
Don't be afraid to watch Mary Shelley's Sprinkle, but with apples and oranges, can't compare it to Moral Orel. I'm still just undeniably grateful that I got to have any involvement with this thing that I would have been a fan of regardless. It spoke to me, when you watch something and it feels like, wow, this was made for me. Somebody wrote something for my personal interests. That's what this felt like. And that was me watching, what was the first episode I saw? Waste. I watched Waste, and I saw that and I was like, this is incredible. And then it just got better and better in season 2 and season 3, and it got even more personal. And again, it like really hit my psyche with nature. And I can't believe I was so lucky to be at the right place at the right time. And I'm so happy to talk about it because I love that it's got any attention today. That's just amazing.
Honor is definitely one of the most effective episodes, I think, in the whole season, just because of where it's placed and what it discusses and the emotional kind of resolution to so many of the themes. It's one of the only resolutions in the whole show. Everything you're saying kind of about how you felt watching the show, you've created that effect on a lot of people. And I think that, especially for if it was just intended to be a spec script, that's something that's super admirable.
Oh, well, geez, thanks. I would like to remain humble, though. That's all credit to good collaboration. And there was plenty of that on that show. Tons of it. It's one of the best crews I ever worked with.
That is definitely something I am noticing too, that it's hard to really pinpoint who did what on the show because it's all merged together. Everyone was just working together with different things. Every small show turns to something else.
I mean, it never dawned on me for a second that anybody was just doing a job on that specific show. It always felt like we were happy to be rowing the ship together, and we were just doing the best we could to send it off right, especially, towards the end, season 3. So, it was very, very cool. And Dino also gave directing ability to other crew members who showed interest. I mean, Grounded was directed by Cameron Beatty. It's one of my favorite episodes. Cameron was an animator. So Dino is a good guy. He allowed people to step up and try on new hats. And that was something I don't see very often. So massive,
especially for a stop motion production where there's a lot at stake with animation, especially.
Yeah, with stop motion, you don't have a lot of chance to redo stuff. It's not like a take 2, take 3. Like, you got to get it right the first time. So you have to be real specific, and it unfortunately means the final product might have a few blemishes on it, but for the most part, I mean, most of season 3 is incredible. So I'm always amazed when I think about how much Dino trusted other people, especially towards the end. He was putting a lot of faith in his crew, and that goes a long way.
All right. Well, I think that's a great note to end it on.
My pleasure. Like I said, it's one of the better things I've ever done with my career, so I'm happy as hell to get other people excited about it.